Fort Morton. We're going to fire the artillery pieces, give you a feel of what a section, just 2 guns of a 6-gun Federal battery sounded like. So you can also compare that to the 102 guns that would have gone off the morning of July 30th here at the Battle of the Crater. So I'll be back to talk to you. Just going to let you know it's going to be loud. We are firing black powder, so if you have a hearing aid, you may want to turn it down, or may want to cover your ears here when you right before. And you don't have to worry until I say ready. They won't be going off until then.
Stop, man. Come on.
Cannonade post! Load! Case! 1,200 yards!
Case! 1,200 yards!
Case! 1,200 yards! Ready!
Ready! Fire my section! Fire! Cease! Fire!
What, baby?
All right, so what you just heard was 2 guns, just 2 guns going off. Imagine you were here at 4:45 in the morning. Right where you were standing would be thousands of federal soldiers lying prone with instructions to rush towards the explosion. 1,000 yards imminent at Elliott's Salient, what you know as the crater. 102 federal guns trained on that position. And thousands of federal troops massed to end the Civil War, destroy the Army of Northern Virginia, capture the city of Petersburg, cut off the rail supply lines to Richmond, and end the war. We know, of course, today that story did not happen that way. We've been up to the blue tents and talked to the Rangers. You've heard on the federal side the plans for the assault, the lack of direct combat leadership, and some of the causes and problems that made those events that I talked about not occur. The other side of it is that the guns that the Federals had were opposed by guns by the Confederacy across the way. When you hop back on the bus or walk over to the crater, you'll see Confederate living historians positioned. There they'll be talking about the Confederate artillery response, which in this particular battle, the Confederacy, for a change, in artillery got the better hand of the Federals. In almost any other Civil War battle, we can talk to you about how the Federal artillery played a better role or got the upper hand on the Confederate artillery. Here at the crater, whether it was Wright's battery on Cemetery Hill, Davidson's battery, or the guns before they were exploded in Elliott's Salient, and Bondurant's battery on the Baxter Road, and the Flanagan's North Carolina battery on Route 301 today, which was the Jerusalem Plank Road. That converging fire from those batteries contributed greatly to the Confederate response and ultimately the Confederate pushback or defeat of the Federal thrust on July 30th. Those guns that were firing, they all fired, both Confederate or Federal, fired 4 types of rounds. 4 types of rounds. Both guns. Here at Fort Morton, in this area where the grass marks what would become known as Fort Morton later in the fall of 1864, there were 14 guns. Of those, 4 were siege guns, really big guns. The remainder were field guns. two examples of field guns lie in front of you that you heard fire. The closest one to you, the 3-inch Hornets rifle. The bronze one in the distance, the Napoleon. Both guns have about a 2,000-yard range. Remember in the Civil War, I don't have a radio or a cell phone, an iPhone. I can't call up my buddies on the front line and say, hey, where'd my shot go? I gotta be able to see what I shoot at. No indirect fire. What I have to choose to fire from are 4 types of rounds in the limbo chest. 2 explosive rounds, 2 non-explosive. The first explosive round is shell. Shell is an exploding round packed with gunpowder that's really good at setting stuff on fire. Woods, leaves, grass, houses. The Confederacy on June 18th, you're standing on the Taylor Farm battlefield in the first assaults on Petersburg. Likely used shell to burn down the Taylor house to keep it from being used as a federal sharpshooter. The other shot is case. It's an anti-personnel weapon. It's full of gunpowder, little round balls, and it breaks into pieces called shrapnel, named after its French inventor, Henry Shrapnel. The idea of this is I'd fire it, it explodes in the air, about 15 yards in front of my target so that the force of that explosion would propel those anti-personnel pieces of shrapnel forward to advancing infantry. If you love John Wayne Civil War movies and you see all the exploding ground from the artillery, that's not how Civil War artillery usually worked. The Federals, though, at the end of the war were experimenting with an explosive impact fuse. But predominantly, Civil War artillery, if it explodes in the air. In the timber chest, the most rounds I have are solid shot. This is the 3-inch Ordnance rifle bolt. It's just a piece of metal, solid. The Napoleon is sometimes referred to as a 12-pounder because it fires a 12-pound shell. Same kind of idea. Does not explode, bounces along the ground, knocks down stuff, beats up earthworks, breaks people's arms and legs off, right? Knocks down houses. Really good for anti-artillery fire. When I'm trying to find those Confederate batteries I talked to you about that are crisscrossing and converging and tearing up this field of fire in front of you on July 30th, I'm going to try to take those guys out with solid shot to be able to destroy their artillery piece. Because destroying their piece is more important than the soldiers, right? Because if I kill some of their soldiers, they go get other guys. If I knock the wheels off, take it so it can't be used, I put that gun out of action. So that's solid shot. And the one that you probably already know about is called canister. This is a 3-inch Ordnance rifle canister round. It's basically a tin can packed with sawdust and little round balls. The big one over there, the Napoleon, would fire what would look like a big tomato can or peach can like you get at Costco, packed with 20 plus 1-inch round iron balls. Range of canister, 600, 300 yards. That's where I like to use it. All these other rounds I talked about, they're 800, 1200, 2,000 yards. What's good about shooting at something 2,000 yards away?
Can't shoot that.
There are no infantrymen other than a few that could probably even think of shooting back at me, right? Only a few can shoot back at me. At 600 or 300 yards, who can shoot back at me? Mr. Infantryman, right? I don't like infantrymen shooting back at me. So I don't have but 4 of these in a standard limber box. Petersburg's a little bit of a different story, especially from here back towards the visitor center, and the lines were in places like at the crater only 100 feet apart. The guns on the front line, including the 4 guns in Elliott's salient before the explosion, are loaded with double canister, the primer in, and the lanyard in, just waiting for an assault, both Confederate and Federal. When you fire canister, you bounce it along the ground, hoping to inflict a wound in the stomach. And what you would see across that field of fire on the morning of July 30th, 1864, is the field torn up from first-hand accounts of shot and shell. Not only loud, but the ground literally being peppered up. A lot of that due to the canister rounds coming from Wright's battery and from the 1-gun section of Davis's battery. Remember I said 102 Federal guns are trained on that position. That 1 gun in Davidson's battery, by some first-hand Confederate accounts, and even some Federal accounts, contributes greatly to saving the day here at the crater for the Confederacy. One gun hidden behind a 14-foot parapet against 102 and 1,000 Federals. Not alone, but that one gun inflicted serious damage on the flank of the attacking Federals. So that's the story of Federal artillery and this side of what's going on at Fort Morton. If you've not already talked to the General Grant back there, he can talk to you about some of the ideas and strategies. Grant would be in the Taylor Farm area the morning of the 30th. He can talk to you about that. And then obviously you can take the trail or walk across and ride across to see the crater itself and talk about the Confederate response. Thank you. You're welcome to come over and look at the guns if you'd like.